Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So look, I didn't expect this week to be that busy. We're in the middle of the holidays. Most people are settling in and relaxing. I didn't expect much activity at all within the Hot 100. Hell, I didn't even expect it to drop yesterday on Tuesday because normally they skip over the holidays. But not only did it come out, it was actually a pretty busy week, in a manner of speaking. Because while some of this I did predict, any changes felt kind of blocky and misshapen and kind of wrong all over, as if they weren't really supposed to happen and did anyway. And part of this revolves around our top 10, where, yes, Thank You Next by Ariana Grande still holds at number 1. And again, I'm not really sure what challenges it. It's not quite dominant on sales or the radio just yet, but it's got strong enough totals across streaming to hold its own against pretty much everybody. And if you want to see where that margin is most defined, look at Without Me by Halsey at number 2. It might be a sales leader and is marginally ahead of Ariana on the radio, but she lags in on-demand streaming, which keeps that song back a little bit. Now this places Sicko Mode by Travis Scott in a bit of an awkward place at number 3, as it has stable streaming, but the sales just aren't there and airplay was kind of inconsistent all week. It's not rising any higher, and it's got real competition in the form of Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee, continuing to ride up the newest Spider-Man movie to number 4 across the board. It's got strength, although I will say radio seems a little slow here. Hell, it pushed back Happier by Marshmello and Bastille to number 5, but you could have seen that coming as it's also down across the board, and right behind it was High Hopes by Panic at the Disco, as it looks like the sales and radio traction finally hit a hard speed bump at number 6. Now what surprised me a little bit was All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey also took a hit in position down to number 7. It's got great on-demand streaming, sure, but maybe just not enough elsewhere in order to keep up. Then we saw a small game for ZZ by Kodak Black featuring Travis Scott and Offset up to number 8. Credit to the album doing well on streaming, I guess. And it actually overtook Drip Too Hard by Lil Baby and Gunna at number 9, even as its streaming starts to look a little bit more shaky. Finally, re-entering the top 10 for the first time in decades, we have It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year by Andy Williams at number 10. Hey, when the streaming's as good as it is, you can't be all that surprised, and hell, it's a good Christmas song too. Now that takes us to our losers and dropouts. At what might have contributed to the slightly busier week than you would expect is that we did have some sizable songs leave the charts, along with album bomb remains. Broken by Lovely the Band, God Is a Woman by Ariana Grande, Taste by Tyga featuring Offset, Lie by NF, and That's On Me by Yella Beezy. They're all gone. And if you go to our losers, well again, most are as a result of album bombs that are fading away. From XXXTentacion, we had Bad fall down to 52, and Whoa, Mind and Awe go to 79. From 6ix9ine, we had Kika with Tory Lanez fall to 76, and Mama with Kanye and Nicki Minaj go to 100. And with Meek Mill, we have 24/7 with LMA fall to 97, and Uptown Vibes with Fabulous and Annual AA fade to 98. The only other losers we had this week were Pure Cocaine by Lil Baby down to 70, from what I can tell was more streaming losses, and Lost in Japan by Shawn Mendes and Zedd falling hard off its gains down to 83, which looks like sales that didn't have a lot of staying power week after week. But then we go to our gains and our returning entries, and the key word here is scattered, because when we go to the latter category, the only Christmas song that came back was White Christmas by Bing Crosby at 48. The rest, they're just songs that I never thought had much traction to begin with and might not stick around, like Lovely by Billie Eilish and Khalid at 89, or Electricity by Silk City, Dua Lipa, Diplo, and Mark Ronson at 93, or Millionaire by Chris Stapleton at 95, and the gains are even more all over the place. For one, off the debut last week, we have This Is It by Scotty McCreery go to 84, and off the return, Beautiful Crazy by Luke Combs rose up to 81. But then we had the continued boost for No Stylist by French Montana and Drake up to 73. Why? I have no idea. What's even weirder are the boosts for El Queer Beber by Annual AA and Romeo Santos up to 80, or Talk to Me by Tory Lanez and Rich the Kid up up to 61, but at least along the way we saw a big revival for Nothing Breaks Like a Heart by Mark Ronson featuring Miley Cyrus. It's a great song. I'm happy to see the sales boost put up to 56. Let's just see if that radio traction holds on. I really want this to be a hit. But that's where things get a little bit more strange, because we have 13 new songs this week, and while there are a few from Kodak Black here, it's not all of them, which places this in a bit of a strange territory. A lot more Christmas songs than I would expect. Before you get that, you want proof of the strangeness? Let's start off with number 91, Envy Me by Calboy.
I got money, envy me.
I guess we might as well just end out this year with another genuinely forgettable trap artist, a slightly sloppy diction, a cheap trap beat, and a little bit too much auto-tune on the hook. Seriously, there's just not much to really say about a song like this, especially as it feels like I've heard so many of them. The content's underwhelming, the hook has no power, and I'm just stuck with a pretty forgettable song overall from this upcoming Chicago MC. And honestly, even though this is his breakthrough, and I can see why folks might envy him for that at the very least, I just can't see myself remembering or caring about this next week. Let's move on. Number 90, The Christmas Song by Lauren Daigle.
On an open fight, Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
So look, I'll be the first to say that I'm a little bit surprised that Lauren Daigle has stuck around as long as she has, and the Christmas single follow-up is a pretty obvious one for her career. And I'll be honest, the more soulful take that Lauren Daigle has at the song is pretty good. She's always had a good voice, and the brushed cymbals playing off the organ and the piano, it has a pretty good soulful vibe, pretty low-key, but I dig it. But just on the Hot 100 right now, with versions of this song, she's stuck competing with Nat King Cole, and I just don't get the same sense of warmth or ready charisma at the forefront through her voice. I mean, it's fine, it's pleasant enough, but I'm not going to be hearing this as the follow-up to You Say, and its success coming with this, she's not going to stick around. Just saying. Number 88, Gnarly by Kodak Black featuring Lil Pump.
Do you wanna boot up, do you wanna party? Hey, hey. Molly's in the Sonic, baby, let's get gnarly. Hey, hey. I get out my tater, I get out my body. Hey, hey.
So we actually only have 3 Kodak Black songs to deal with here, and this is his crossover to Lil Pump, and alright, seriously, are we opening up with the song about how he's popping a Cialis and saying how he wants to get gnarly? What middle-aged burnout from the mid-90s wrote this? And yeah, it somehow gets worse from there. Kodak outright lies to his girl, saying he doesn't have money, as he rhymes I ain't got it 3 times with itself, and references the Duty Wine, a bad dance name that should have been left in the 2000s along with Sean Paul. And then Lil Pump outright insults the girl that he's screwing, and then says she's getting deported in between all his flexing. Yeah, you know, the levels of class and taste are just off the charts with this, and yet sadly to be overlooked by a halfway decent wiry melody playing off the denser percussion. I kinda like the production here. Still not quite enough to ignore how much these guys' dicks don't work, but let's move on. Number 87, Sweet But Psycho by Ava Max.
At night she's screaming, I'm on my mind, my mind. Oh, she's hot but a psycho. So left but she's right though. At night she's screaming, I'm on my mind, my mind.
So it's a little bit weird that I'm talking about Ava Max here. She's normally the sort of pop act that's far bigger in Europe that I'd normally cover as a world hit if ever talking about her on the Hot 100. But here we are. And honestly, I've heard a lot of folks calling this song pretty bad, but I don't really mind it. Yeah, it always heads into sketchy territory when the girl actively calls herself psycho and seems to be actively glorifying how this guy is attracted to it. Plus there's a lot of stuttered syllables and I don't like that. But the solid low-end synth playing off the layered hand claps have potential, and I like how Ava Max actually seems to have some charisma, at least until the trap breakdown on the bridge just kind of completely kills the momentum. But here's the thing, even if I don't quite have a full grasp on her personality just yet, or even all that sure whether I like this song, it is catchy enough to show that if Ava Max gets enough traction or some good marketing, this could well be a hit. In other words, this is probably going to stick around, so might as well be prepared for that. Number 74, Testimony by Kodak Black.
Stuck in these streets, feel like my life froze. I've been running these streets, got me dehydrated. I've been living so crazy, feel like I'm dying, baby.
Alright, let it be known that in the year of our Lord 2018, Kodak Black opened up this song with a comparison that didn't even try to make sense to Demon Semen. Honestly, that promises a far more potent and interesting song than this ugly dirge, with a hideous auto-tune on the hook and the second verse. The percussion is way too close to the front of the mix, and Kodak Black continuing to prove how he's one of the least talented rappers working today, as he barely even tries to stay close to the beat. Seriously, I'm not against rapping off beat or flipping it up to make a point, but Kodak Black isn't trying to be weird. He's trying to warble through verses talking about being sent by God, and people hate because God keeps blessing him, and not for him, not being able to help himself as he tore off her clothes, bit her repeatedly, and raped a woman while she screamed for help back in 2016. Oh, but there I go again, quoting the court transcripts. And yeah, I'm gonna bring it up here, because the entire song is trying to frame him as an unjust religious martyr, even though on his second verse, he outright says that he's shooting more people, and then getting washed off with bleach from his friends in the music industry. Oh, I'm sorry, I just plugged that in naturally, so he can go flex on Instagram. So, I made a statement back in my worst hit songs of 2017 that I didn't think he'd have a career. So let me ask again, what's worth keeping around with Kodak Black in favor of any other slew of artists who could use his promotion and star power? Because right now, I'm not seeing what this guy has. And this song is trash. Number 68, Cozy Little Christmas by Katy Perry.
Just want a cozy little Christmas here with you.
You know, it's not a good thing when you have to hope that a Katy Perry song might make me feel better, especially as since the disaster that was witnessed, it feels like it's been years since we got quality from Katy Perry. But alright, she put out a Christmas song and I'm really not wowed by it. Look, I've said in the past that modern Christmas pop songs just don't really click with me. They're way too plastic and chintzy and honestly kind of commercial. And when it's delivered by Katy Perry sticking in her lower register and highlighting just how little distinctive, attractive vocal flair she has against these big brassy horns and sleigh bells that can't quite disguise how the brand names are clumsily shoved in, especially on that bridge. Yeah, you know what? I know Katy's had a couple bad years, but this is not the return we needed. Honestly, don't expect it to stick around. It's part of an Amazon commotion. Next, number 58, MoshPit by Kodak Black featuring Juice WRLD. As a pairing, it's almost too obvious, and between the rest of my videos, or even just the first half of this one, you know where I stand on these guys, so what do we get? Honestly, not terrible. Most because I think Juice WRLD's verse is actually pretty decent in terms of its punchlines, until he highlights how he's old enough to fuck your mom. Yeah. But the real problem is that the song is just not remotely mosh-worthy, especially with Kodak Black whining about how people are bitter and how he's scared to jump out into the crowd. And pair with pretty weak production and a bass that swamps out damn near everything. You know what? I don't like Juice WRLD that much, but he is just volumes better than Kodak in terms of likable personality or just even staying on beat. If we have to have one of these guys, I'll take him instead. Number 50, Christmas Baby Please Come Home by Darlene Love. Okay, the last couple songs here are arguably being called Christmas songs, and I want to blow through these pretty quickly, especially as I don't think we're dealing with the upper tier of songs. This one, okay, Darlene Love has kind of slipped out of music history because her biggest successes either came with the Crystals or on compilations from Phil Spector, where this song actually got its success back in the 60s. And I don't mind it, mostly thanks to Phil Spector's production, but if you don't have a huge powerhouse behind the singer, like, people tend to get bowled over by Phil Spector's walls of sound. And sadly, Darlene Love just doesn't quite grab me in the same way, no matter how hard she's trying with this mix. I mean, it's a fine enough song, but I personally prefer U2's version. That's all. Number 47, Wonderful Christmastime by Paul McCartney. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. And now we've got two songs coming up from members of the Beatles, the first being from my favorite Beatle, Paul McCartney, and I'll say it right now, this is easily one of his worst songs. This originally came out in the late 70s, which was a really bad time for Paul, in his attempt to embrace that flat, blaring synth that's throwing up over everything against a blocky hook that never goddamn evolves. Hell, even Paul sounds like he's phoning this in with his delivery. Yeah, let's call it like it is. Even despite the better covers, this is a really bad song. It's stiff, the original mix is kitschy in the worst possible way that come out of the late 70s, and the writing is utterly insipid. So can it get worse? Well, number 45, Happy Xmas, War is Over by John and Yoko, the Plastic Yoko Band with the Harlem Community Choir.
Let's hope it's a good one without any fear.
So look, I'm not one of those guys who claims that Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles. She probably didn't help matters, but I'd prefer the Beatles break up and move on than the string of phoned in or outright garbage albums that afflicted many 60s acts in the 70s. Ash with Beach Boys. Now, that being said, a lot of music by John and Yoko is kinda hard to like if you're not a die-hard fan. And this is coming from someone who does respect what they did for avant-garde music, and is always kinda surprised how much of John's solo music that I actually wind up liking. That said, I have never liked this song. The inclusion of the Harlem Community Choir has always felt really ham-fisted. The song has always felt a little bit out of John's natural vocal range, and it's really hard to ignore the unsubtle political jabs. I mean, when you open up the song with, "So this is Christmas, and what have you done?" you kinda lose all of that populist giving spirit you need to inspire people, John. So, yeah, it's a bit of a headache too, if I'm being brutally honest. I mean, if I want to look at something that works a little bit better, number 42, It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas by Perry Como and the Fontane Sisters.
Take a look in the 5 and 10,
Listening once again.
with candy canes and silver lanes aglow.
So as I have said before, there is a wealth of Christmas songs that charted before the Hot 100 was ever created formally. And given that this first hit was on the charts in 1951, this is one of them, and it's also one I tend to like. Perry Como tends to be underrated when it comes to crooners of that era, mostly because, like Sinatra, I made it look so damn easy, but he plays off the Fontane Sisters really well, and helps the songwriter Meredith Willson, who you might recognize for writing musicals like The Unsinkable Molly Brown and a little something called The Music Man. Hell, he gave him a damn great song to work with. I like the production, I like the low-key charm of the harmonies, I like the easy chemistry of all of it, and I like how it's so obviously indebted to the golden age of Hollywood musicals. So yeah, it's absolutely a standard, but it's one that I want to really highlight, but if I want to go to one I like a little bit more, number 41, There's No Place Like Home for the Holidays by Perry Como.
No matter how far away you roam.
And again, we got another hit that charted before the Billboard Hot 100, this time in 1954. And honestly, I like it for many of the same reasons I like the last song. Como's incredible low-key charisma and surprising range, the great harmonies, the golden age of musicals callbacks. It's just an incredibly charming song that perfectly captures the holiday mood for me. And while I can easily see why some might find the production switch up midway through a little bit too, let's call it zany, I kind of like how it completes the vibe and switches things up a little bit. In other words, yeah, it's old-fashioned, kind of cheesy, but for Christmas, for me, this works. Great song. And finally, number 24, Imagine by Ariana Grande.
Imagine a world.
Okay, I was expecting the title alone we'd be getting Ariana Grande covering John Lennon's Imagine, and I was prepared to go on at length about my complicated relationship on that song and how some people have recontextualized it as more of a Christmas song. But no, we got an original composition here, and apparently it's all about imagining a world where something could have worked out with the late Mac Miller, as referencing his tattoo, Imagine, more of a fantasy built off of willful denial on her part, and you know what, that could have worked, even if the writing feels a little bit too willing to indulge in modern cliches with the drip and the skirt. But I think my bigger issue comes with the production. It feels leaden and clunky by letting the beat swamp out the mix. There's no grace or subtlety to it, even if Ariana's vocals sound really pretty with those whistle notes and some of the layered multi-tracking. But as a whole, sorry, like with Thank You Next, it's not doing it for me. Let's move on. But wait, that was this week. Yeah, not really good, honestly pretty bad at spots. But what's more exasperating is that I generally don't like giving the best of the week to old-fashioned Christmas songs that are gonna be gone so damn fast, or just holiday standards. It feels too easy. But really, they're the best things here. So as There's No Place Like Home for the Holidays by Perry Como snake the best. And honorable mentions going to It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas by Perry Como with the Fontane Sisters. The worst, yeah, Testimony by Kodak Black probably pisses me off the most because it's at least trying to be serious. and shouldn't be. But dishonorable mention is going to Wonderful Christmastime by Paul McCartney, most because it's a bad song that stuck around entirely too long, and that synth work is atrocious from an artist who should really know far better. Next week, hell, it's probably going to be all a bunch of 21 Savage plugging all the holes that these Christmas songs will leave, so stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.